Hello again. I'm just going to do another one of these updates. I just spent 3 hours in a nearly 3 hours in a queue, waiting for a virtual conference call in the Family Law Court of Australia because I finally got my urgent contravention order listed for my children who haven't seen their mother properly for 3 years, at 11 years of age and 14, particularly my daughter, who, if you go to Instagram, you'll see a photo of her severely burnt leg when she fell asleep next to a radiator. Then was coached by her father to say that something different happened, but you can see from the angle of the radiator burn that she was lying horizontally. And so she, by logic, could have died in a house fire. And yet, registrar, we got listed last because I finally got the yes yesterday. So they were saying, yes, you can green light your application for an urgent contravention order. And at first they kept rejecting it because they said, well, he has ignored all parenting orders that I've been given by the Family Law Court for 3 years, past 11th of October 2020. So what's the point in listing every single AB week swap around and Mother's Day and Christmas Day and birthday and everything? And I heard story after story of people who were trying to get through to the judge that, the child had been stolen by the other parent and relocated interstate and lived in a 2-bedroom house with 3 other adults who had mental health difficulties, and had texted the father, in this case it was, saying that they have no room for the mother and her child. And despite literally starting by knowing that my affidavit was so large that it was crunched down and so probably not very viewable by the registrar, who, after I got approved after we got listed, like literally yesterday morning I got listed yesterday morning after all of this work. It's 2.5 years now trying and constantly being told that your paperwork's wrong or that the wrong cover sheet is on your affidavit. I mean, can you believe the fucking mind-blowing petty bureaucracy of that? The wrong cover sheet is on your affidavit. That's one of the things I got told. Got literally indulged for about 5 or 10 minutes, I think it was 10, citing all the actions that I'd taken so far to try to bring this urgent contravention order because the father's contravening my children's rights, and they're enshrined or meant to be under United Nations Rights of the Child, Article 9, UNESCO Rights of the Child, and Section 60cc of the Family Law Court Act. And despite the fact she could have died in a house fire when she fell asleep in his so-called care next to a radiator, and the photos over at Instagram, the extensive bruising around her knee and the scarring on her knee, and despite the fact he's abused 3 women on the police record, and we got the wrong judge and she ruled all of that out, and then I got the right judge put back on, but a year and a half later, by that time, being prevented from my little girl, I'd had a nervous breakdown, literally. Despite all of that, she said, oh, competent submissions, Ms. Farrow-Pryke. She had 10 minutes after waiting all morning. She apologised that we got put last in the list because it got put on yesterday morning. But then at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, first, I received an email saying, well, has he been served? And I'm like, well, I have to serve him via email. I don't have the means or the money to keep running around and paying people. And he's vexatiously put an AVO on me, so I can't go near my children, which is one of the many, many ploys that people use routinely in the family law court, to further stymie and make it impossible for other parents to get access to their children in order to collect them for parenting order time, which I have in my hands, and he's never honoured. And this, of course, just sends you further and further towards the grave, and destroys you emotionally, which is not mentally, it's emotionally, but of course it is mentally, because your mind changes when your heart is broken, of course. Being constantly deprived from your children and them from you, and knowing all the irretrievable, innocent and lovely years of their life are going by, and you're missing out on all the beautiful moments of their life every single day. The livelong day, the beautiful everyday moments of the day. She tells me not to show her the photo of my child's burnt leg and to put the camera back on myself. Asks me how long I will require for my submissions. And I say, well, how long have you got, Your Honour? Like, there's quite a few here, if you don't mind. And so I proceeded through them. And then she gave me 10 minutes and stopped. And even though she'd said words like, I wrote them all down, in other people's cases that we all were on a conference call hearing in a list, but we were muted until our case came up, as was everybody else respectively. So despite that, and hearing her say things like, well, it's bleedingly obvious that the special occasions like Mother's Day and Father's Day are when each parent would want to have their children with them, or Christmas or birthdays, and despite the fact that years and years of all these special occasions have been completely contravened for my children and I by this man who assaulted 3 women on the police record, me included, his wife and the one in between. Despite all of that, she literally just said, we haven't put it in the right form. And I said, Your Honour, with respect, this is urgent. I nearly had a stroke. I'm on beta blockers for my heart, which is literally broken. My children haven't seen me for years in any meaningful way. I haven't seen them. There's irretrievable years of their life going by. And we can't be quibbling about forms. The wrong piece of paper on a major case of the deprivation of a child's human rights, and definitely a mother's as well. And when the child is in danger of dying because she could have died in a house fire with the burns on her leg that I've put to the court. And so she's like, oh yes, I'm sorry that this is often a problem with self-represented litigants. I go and suggest you go and get legal advice. It's like, I've written to legal aid. I don't have the money to get a lawyer. And so she just said, Ms. Farrow-Pryke, unless you just go and make another application for final orders instead, I'm dismissing your case because it doesn't meet the criteria. Now, I've been working on this particular. Again, this is the latest version of the case, so I've been working on this for 4 whole weeks, been into the Sydney Family Law Court, spoken to a senior client services officer for 2 hours, checked every I, dotted all the I's, crossed the T's, checked everything, submitted it. Sat in a queue, got told it was wrong because I hadn't listed all the dates that he, in 3 years, had violated all the parenting orders and the times I was meant to spend with her. So then I sat down for 2 whole days and worked through spreadsheets of every single date that he'd violated, and then listened this morning as she said, oh, I'm sorry, to other people, you're going to have to drop the amount of claims you're claiming that he violated or she violated these dates on, and you're just going to have to drop them down to 10 or 15 of the crucial ones, when the whole reason that they rejected my application in the first place is I said, well, they're too many to list. He's just totally deprived her of me since the 11th of October 2020. And hello, Suzanne Pryor, if you're watching eventually, because that was the last, remember when you were moving house and packing up from Cremorne? And I came and saw you, and my little girl tried on your red heels that you had when you were doing your garage sale. That was the last day I'd ever tucked her into bed. And of course, as I've told you before, 10 adults I know in my cohort of 650 people, which is 1.5% of all of them, haven't seen their children at all for years, without any penalty for the parent who's keeping their children and alienating their children from them and teaching them to live as if they're dead. But yet you can go to a criminal court with a rapist and a murderer for not paying your parking fine. Then they cancel your licence, you drive your car, you're in a criminal court, despite your skill set driving not changing one bit. And so on, this torment of adults go, and of children being kept from their parents, losing lives, irretrievable years of their evolving precious lives of innocence, literally where they're never going to be. Despite what you think about childhood innocence, they change so much. They're so happy-go-lucky, and they need those years with both parents if both parents are loving. So despite her small concession in saying, well, very competent submissions, however, I'm stopping you right there because I'm dismissing your contravention completely because it needs to be relodged as an application for final orders. I'm like, well, why did they accept it onto the contravention list in the first place? And why do they ask you to list every single date in the 3 years? Because they kept rejecting it because I hadn't listed every single date in the 3 years that he's deprived her. So I then sat down for 2 days in my life, tediously in this state, trying to work through diaries and when school holidays change each year and Easter changes each year, and then when you meant to have AB swap arounds and when all the birthdays and Mother's Days and all the other events are, and gave them what they wanted, only to sit here this morning and have listened to them say, oh, you're going to have to cull that down. You've got 12 pages, as I did, of violations, of contraventions of the orders for parenting being contravened by the other parent, keeping the child from you. So you're going to have to take that and cull it down. It's like, well, why didn't you just accept what I said in the first place, which is it's too many to list. It's from the 11th of October 2020 until now. So she said, I'm sorry, I'm dismissing your application. No, you'll have to reframe it in some other thing. I suggest you get legal advice. I'm like, I don't have a lawyer. I don't have enough money to. I've literally emailed Wollongong Legal Aid 2 weeks ago with my case. Haven't heard a single word from them, not an email, nothing. I mean, and we're coming up to Christmas, so everyone's just going on holiday, so this shit's going to shut down for another 8 or 12 weeks. Then she starts high school and it's game over. There's no holiday time ordered. Nothing. And it doesn't just break your heart. It crushes your spirit. And it crushes your will to live, because this is what Hamas did to Israelis. This is what Russians did to Ukrainians. And yet it's perfectly legal here to steal a child from a loving parent. And you do all that 150 pages of affidavits with annexures and exhibits, Annexures are print material, exhibits are photos or objects. And explaining everything. And then she said, however, your affidavit didn't corroborate all the contraventions. I'm like, no, you asked me to list the list of the times he contravened them. And here's the affidavit explaining why this is so dangerous. And she's sort of basically saying, no, the affidavit was meant to explain each date of the contravention. It was like, well, he just didn't give her to me at any time, at any place, at any date. And here's the affidavit of why it's really important, that he's showing you that he's dangerous to her, he's dangerous to me, he's dangerous to us, he's been dangerous to others before us. And yet you're going to make me sit down now and do it all over again, when really what needs to be done is it needs to be picked up in its entirety, given over to a professional, a technician, they call themselves, lawyers, and let them do it. But they're all flat run off their feet because everyone who's been deprived of their children in the Christmas upcoming 6-week holiday period. And so this dangerous, well-disguised psychopathic narcissist who's sitting, the father of my child, who's done it to 3 other women, literally, and it's all on the police record, is sitting on the other end of the phone and, oh yes, I'm here, your registrar. And it's like, oh, great. And then she just dismisses it and says, okay, you're dismissed too, Mr. Little. You can go now. I say, thank you, registrar. And so he just walks off and gets away with it again. It's just like, there was an old saying, who do you have to fuck to get a drink in this place? What do you have to do to get actual justice when they're telling you that the wrong form that you put on your affidavit, you put the wrong top cover form on your affidavit, so your child's rights have just pissed down the drain again for another 3 weeks or whatever it takes for you to go and get, as if you've got all the time in the world to go and do it. And this is now the 2.5 year And we sat in this case for nearly 3 hours this morning in the queue. She did apologise, but because we were put on at the last minute yesterday. So that begs the question, why did they even put it on in the first place if it was not valid? Of course, why was it put in the list if it was not valid? Please, somebody out there who knows someone who can either do pro bono family work. Matt, I asked you, I understand your rationale, and you said, it's best not to mix friends with business. I get it. But I'm on my last legs here, I nearly had a stroke on my beta blockers. I'm depressed from it. My child's missing out on her mum. My son's missing out on his mum. I'm missing out on them. You can't just drag yourself around the planet endlessly with lead in your heart. It's like kryptonite. It's literally like having a chest full of kryptonite. And then I, rung a good documentary, a very well-reputed documentary maker, and kind of downloaded a lot of this stuff, and I'm like, sorry, gotta go. And I'm like, oh my God, how embarrassing. I just literally overdumped because there's so much information that you're like trying to go, look, can you help me get this basic fundamental human rights abuse case up, because it's happening to 1.5% of all adult parents I know, and they're good people. They're kind and loving and mostly educated. Doesn't matter if they're educated or not. They're kind and loving parents, right? So it gives me one little, concessionary remark, saying, your submissions were competent, Ms. Farrow-Pryke, but you got the wrong form. Dismissed. And I went, but Your Honour, they were listed yesterday, so they must be the right... No, I said this wrong. Dismissed. You're available to go now, Ms. Farrow-Pryke. You too, Mr. Littleby. And he goes, oh, thank you, Your Honour, he purrs. And off he goes. And so he got a bludgy day off work, sitting in a queue, getting hot tips, listening for other people, and then just didn't have to answer a case at all and just got to walk away again for another weekend coming up on the event horizon without my children. And last weekend, I got through to her twice this week, which is a huge amount. Often it was 4 months he kept there without even a conversation with me on the phone. And then I get through to her once this week, and I say, what did you do last weekend, darling? Just tell me what you do with your days. So they're not enrolled in any activities. There's no sport, there's no dance, there's no piano that I invested $10,500 in for them. There's nothing. They just sit around and they do their chores. He makes them do chores and clean all their rooms and do the lawn for my 14-year-old boy who could hurt himself doing it. And then she described that she came down to the shopping centre in front of my house here, like literally right here. Comes down to a shopping centre that's over there to get clothes. And I'm like, well, I was literally 50 metres away from you, darling. I could have had a coffee or cuddled you or heard how your week went or anything. And he's taught her to just think, oh, well, of course we didn't think of contacting you. We never see you because we never see you anymore. Like, if you're a parent who loves your children, can you even try and imagine this? Since he did this, since he got her at 5 years of age, as I told you all the stories below in all these other videos of how it happened, the horror of it. I never had been near a hospital except to give birth or have a colonoscopy or something, or an endometriosis investigation, doubling over in pain in 2003 and being told I had endometriosis. So there was, general anaesthetics, terminations of pregnancy, colonoscopies. Since he did this, I've been in 7 times in 5 years for major clinical depression. So the Australian taxpayer gets to now have a burden of someone who's just reduced to this. And that's why I spent the whole last year, going from 3 photos at Instagram because I didn't care for it, over to 1,600 videos and photos so you could just go and see for yourself. Just like how all of that love and that laughter and that education and books and hugs and care and music and skiing and ice skating and dancing and swimming and tennis and love and laughter and Scrabble and great meals and beautiful sleeping children and everything that's over there, and it's just gone. And what do you do? Like, you're the walking dead. Everyone understands how, the licensing. So our nation is officially licensing us to be part of the wholesale war crime murder of the Gaza Strip based on the same thing being done to children of Israelis, stolen from their parents and murdered. But he's murdering me. So this way is kind of somehow worse because it's slower. At least they got to die fast. And without hope, what do you do? Like, at this stage because parental alienation is about teaching the child to just get used to you just being dead, just to never being there at any moment of any part of the day or the night or the week or the weekend or the month or the year or anything. Please, if you know anyone who could do pro bono work as a family lawyer, or anyone who can rephrase this 138-page affidavit that just has taken me, I've done 4 different edits of it now. It's taken 1.5 years in the State Library, the Deloraine Library. The costs, I had to serve him last night. They demanded that I serve him, so they accepted it just to finalise this into the contravention list and demanded that I couldn't serve it as an email, even though he's put an AVO on him and I've turned up to see my own children. So I can't go near him to serve it myself. And so I had to pay $150 to a process server, all of which is on the list of all the huge costs and expense, the $5,000 on lawyers before, the printing costs in the library, the printing costs of office work of doing it all, the rewrites, the time of my life just pissed down the drain. Him just gloating, going, like a fucking evil little gnome dancing on my grave, my as yet barely unmade grave. Man, this country is just frightening. For human rights abuses, and as I've said in previous emails, the videos, this is usually Aboriginal women who've been assaulted by men and they've got no housing affordability, and then they get their children taken off them by welfare just to finish it, just to put the final knife right inside their guts and drive it up them, and wonder why people are lying around drinking themselves to death, stealing their children. There's stolen children in white society in Australia as well because there is no criminalisation of it. None. So there's no stick. But the carrot is child support payments and the avoidance of them, because if you share your children, they're based on overnight stays. So please, put this to someone who could do something about it. It's got to be, because I'm just one of tens of thousands of people in this situation. A woman came on, by the way, just on that. When we're sitting there and you see everyone comes up in the list and the camera goes on and the microphone goes on whenever their case is called, but everyone else is sitting there in the holding bay waiting for their list to come up today for 3 hours, and we were last, literally, because we got put on at the last moment. Again, why did they put us on if my application wasn't straight in the first place? Why did I have to pay $150 to serve him? Because they said, oh no, you can't do it by email. So I had to find a process server in Wollongong, quickly give him $150 cash. He goes and prints it all and runs it off and says, you're served at 9 o'clock last night. We sit here for 3 hours, and one of the women in the queue this morning, she was the mother. She was the only other woman. I wish I could have seen her full name, because I would have phoned her right now. And she was one of the only other women instead of men in the queue suffering this situation. And she had the darkest, like me, had the darkest circles under her eyes. And she had put forward 72 pages of violations, of contraventions of her parenting orders by the father, just simply withholding the child, because then he could claim 100% that he has the child, 100%, and so he doesn't owe her child support, and he could just fuck her up if he's vengeful like my ex is. Literally fucking suck. It's like mendacious and vexatious, and just as he was described by both his ex-wife and partner in between, mentally unwell. And do this. A psychopath is someone who lacks empathy, so he's literally by definition a psychopath, because he's lacking empathy for the child. Because the child and the children deserve a mother, and they have a perfectly loving one. Go over to Instagram, type my name in. So why would you? Isn't that like the biggest red flag on earth to anybody in the authorities system, in the family law court system? The red flag is this parent is willing to subject the children to a life without their other parent, and the parent's a good, kind and loving and educational one. So why would you do that? And just on that ground alone, which is why I keep saying, please, Minister, Federal Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, who presides ultimately over the Family Law Court, King's Counsel, Federal Minister for Women, Katie Gallagher, all of the people around, anyone making policy, the Teals, Zali Stengel, Allegra Spender, anybody out there, you need to make legislation to criminalise this behaviour, because there's no stick and there's a major carrot, which is avoiding child support payments and the inconvenience of sharing, and it's also getting to exact vengeance on an ex-partner who you're malicious against. And so it's weaponised my children to do it. And every single time I make these gargantuan 150-page, 6-month-long efforts, 3-month-long efforts to do anything, they go, you got the wrong cover sheet. Fucking go back to the beginning and, you put it in the wrong form. It's like, dickhead, have a read of what's going on. It's hardly the matter of the form it's in. It's the matter of, it's not the form, it's the content. Look at the content. It's alarming. But no. So back to the drawing board I go. Or what? Walk around the world. I mean, if you can even summons the strength and the perseverance after 3 years of being heartbroken every single minute of your day and night, tormented in your dreams. If you can't even find it in you anymore to go back to the drawing board because you don't have the money to go to a lawyer, by the time you get there, they're already 12 years of age, and so the court listens and weights their opinion more. It's called weighting their opinion, W-E-I-G-H-T, obviously. It weights their opinion more. And so they go, oh no, we're good, we're fine with Dad, we don't want to see Mum things, because they've been taught to say that, they've been taught to live like that. And they like their friends, and they like the beach, they like this, they like that. So we get along fine without Mum, it doesn't matter. Meanwhile, they don't have any idea that, Mum's close to death. Or if they do, they've been taught not to care. When if you look at the magic and the beauty and the laughter and the light and the love and the music only 5 minutes ago, which is actually now 5 years ago, it's like bombing Dresden. It literally is like the bombing of Dresden. I say that if you go over and look at all the evidence, which is only 1,600 photos and videos of the 22,000 that I have in the iCloud under Apple, but I've put them up on Instagram because you've got to do them one at a time and they take forever to load. That was a lot of work. as if the lifetime of my life being shilled away at this age and stage too isn't valuable in and of itself in the preparation and the suffering that this causes. And when the child herself is in danger, literally could have died in a house fire, burnt legs, anything that she was wearing could have ignited and killed everybody in the house, my son as well. So there goes the next 12 weeks over Christmas and holidays and my birthday and there's school holidays, and then she goes into high school and then she says, oh, I'm fine, I don't want to live with mum or whatever, I'm at my new school, and I'm like, I can't do anything without money. I was like, was it Mark Twain or Bob Dylan who said you get the best justice money can buy? I don't have any money. Honey? So what do you do? Sell your house? Just sleep in your car? There's no point being in your house anyway because you're just a ghost walking and rattling around with no life left because your children are gone. It's just... And this woman in the queue, I looked at her, I wish I could get her name because she looked worse than me, even big, dark, huge circles under her eyes and just sitting there sort of almost immune, nodding, hearing that here she goes being blown off again, and she was just looking at the camera going. And you can see her trying not to cry, but she looked like she'd been crucified, she looked like a junky, dark, she's standing, and it's just like, oh, you've got 72 pages of the father contravening and keeping the child from you. Well, can you nail it down to 10 key points? Whereas on Monday they were telling me that I didn't sit and list every single contravention, so I couldn't even get on the list. Today I sat in the fucking list, and they're saying everyone's listed too many contraventions. Can you just list it down to 10? I'm like, you assholes, make up your mind. Which one is it? You're the fucking bureaucrats who get paid 130 grand plus a year more. If you're a registrar at the family law court, they'd be on at least 260 to sit there and do this. And it fucking doesn't even add up. The left hand's not talking to the right. It's like, no, you're not getting on the contravention list because you haven't listed enough actual specific dates, times and places that he contravened every order. And then everyone does it and gives up their 72-page list and they go, oh, you can't give that much. It's like, oh, what? Fuck off, really? Man. I don't know what to do. Please, somebody out there who knows a family lawyer who can do some pro bono work immediately, please help. Please contact me. Please private message me. All my the details are public through this thing anyway. And then just to top it all off, I fucking embarrassed myself trying to download onto a goddamn producer of great documentaries saying, please help. I had no fucking idea the Walkleys were on last night. No idea I should have stopped and said congratulations. I was just like, please, hi, I saw you online, like, I've got this case, like, I'm trying to get it up to Screen Australia, can you help me? This really needs to be changed because the only thing that I can try and do, anyone can try and do, with this much suffering is to make it useful so that other people never have to go through it again. But it presumes that after all this time, you've still got it in you to even breathe. And in the case of Maya Kowalski, she killed herself. Beata, Maya's mother, killed herself on day 87 in Florida when the same thing happened to her. She had a husband too to help. I got nobody. She had a little boy as well to look after. She couldn't bear the pain of losing a 10-year-old daughter. And they made an order on her, falsely accused her of having Munchausen's by proxy. She didn't. She was a nurse. She just loved her daughter. And then she went and hung herself. So Florida spent 5 years trying to keep them away from suing the hospital and the welfare state, but they won in the end, and it was in the New York Times 4 weeks ago, $261 million. But the pain in their eyes, the entire family, they're supposed to be sitting there like that's some prize. I mean, what prize in life? Nothing if you're in the Gaza Strip. Nothing if you're an Aboriginal. or at least most of them. Nothing to parents alienated from their children in Australia, doing everything they can to seek legal recourse. And then the ultimate insult, the catch-22, oh, you're too fucked up now to have them, look how upset you are and disturbed. Oh, well, you did that to me. Oh, well, too bad, that's how you are now. And, so you're disturbed and they're not, so they can keep them. I mean, what a fucking racket. What a neat little rig, eh? Like, our life is clearly worth absolutely nothing in most places on earth, and then absolutely huge amounts of money if you got lots of money. Or if, like the Kowalskis, you had enough money to stand your ground and wait for 5 years and cry your ass off every time they told you no when you went to court as well. It's all over at that Netflix documentary, Take Care of Maya, M-A-Y-A. So a mother hung herself, and then they immediately gave the child back. Oh, that's it. Oh, there's nothing else to say. Please, if you know a generous benefactor, or if you can make any contribution to my GoFundMe, but particularly if you know a family law lawyer who can do immediate and urgent pro bono work, please, please, please put me in contact with that person. And if you've been through this, like I know 10 of the people on my list of friends have, and acquaintances have, who I'm in contact with going, would you be prepared to speak about this onto either radio or TV if they backlit you and changed your voice so as not to break Australian law protecting the rights of a child to privacy? Would you? And they're like, yeah, of course, yeah, I was suicidal for 10 years. One man said, he was suicidal for 10 years. And now his daughter's 23 and he hasn't seen her since she was 4, and he gave up, made some art, got somewhere with his art, but permanently ruined in his heart. When you're a mother, of course you grow your child right under your heart and nurture them from your breast. What more torturous thing can you possibly do to a loving mother than take their child? Bomb the Gaza Strip, 2.5 million people for 1,500 stolen Israelis. They know what it felt like. What, should I just get out my army and nuke? Me and whose army? Man, and woman, I'm sorry every time I end up in this state, but it's necessary to say it because it's happening to a lot of people. And so I better go, because, I guess my next phone call is legal aid. Like, what does it take to get you to even respond to an email from 3 weeks ago, giving you this dossier? And just nothing. And I've done all the grunt work. They don't even have to put it together. Write to your local MP. I don't agree that I should go to jail for not paying a parking fine and driving my car unlicensed when you cancel my licence for the non-payment of a parking fine. But you can steal a child off a loving mother or father in this country and nothing happens to you at all. Signed, me. And you. And anyone who can be bothered to. Do it for my kids. Do it for my kids.